Peace. This is the enemy's public, and I am Brother Nasir. I pray that everybody's having a good morning. This morning, I want to present to the listening audience the master teacher, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. She's a woman that I truly revere. And she's up there with all the master teachers. And today's presentation is Black Man, White Woman on the Tony Brown Journal. Again, this is for the attentive listeners. If you have a attention deficit, this is not for you, yet this is for the attentive listeners. Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, Black Man, White Woman.
This is the part one of a two-part series entitled Black Man, White Woman. Significantly, it was not entitled Black Woman, White Man because in the last 10 years, the statistics indicate that there is a significant increase in relationships between Black men and white women and a significant decrease in relationships between Black women and white men. With me to discuss this very volatile issue are two leading psychiatrists, Dr. Frances Welsing, a member of the psychiatric department of the Medical College at Howard University, and Dr. Alvin Poussant, a psychiatrist, a member of the Medical College at Harvard University, and author of the well-known book, Why Blacks Kill Blacks. To begin with you, Sister Welsing, why do you believe, basically, Black men are becoming so significantly attracted to white women, or is it vice versa?
I'd like to turn it around. I think, first of all, that white women are seeking Black men first. Black men some are attracted to white women. And I don't think that we can understand this phenomena unless we understand really what is the larger dynamic that is occurring, not only in this society, but in the world at large. And the way that I look at that phenomena is that, number one, we are living within the context of a system of white supremacy, which is my definition of racism. Racism is a worldwide system of white supremacy, domination, and control. And all of the behavior that we see all over the world, whether it's the behavior of the Black woman, the white woman, the Black man, or the white man, is occurring within the dynamics of this system. And we can understand what is happening as far as the white woman, Black man relationship and why that is on the increase. I think if we understand the need for the system to remain intact.
But Frances, you don't think that the Black man has a special attraction toward the white woman?
Oh, yes, he does. Yes, he does. Well, he has been programmed historically to feel that, first of all, this is the woman who is the woman in the world. And this is a thing that has been denied him, in terms of, let's say, male-female relations or sexual partners. The Black man, at least in this area of the world, has been told historically, you cannot touch this woman. And so at that level of social dynamic programming, yes, the Black man has always felt, well, this is the one thing that I have been denied in this society. And so many Black men, I think, for, at one level, they are moving towards white women as white women move. White women are the major aggressors in this situation. But the black man is playing his role because he says, well, this is a thing that I've been denied. This is the thing that is going to be the great equalizer.
I think, though, that the need has sort of been exaggerated, because if we look at those statistics you just mentioned, actually in the past decade, even with the increase, there's only about 43,000 black man, white woman marriages. That's a very, very tiny percentage. That means about 2% of black men are married to white women. Mm-hmm. Now, if we had accepted the propaganda, that is the white propaganda, that all black men desire a white woman and they want to marry your daughter, you would expect the incidence of the marriages to really be increasing at a much greater rate.
I was going to ask, does it mean that that the fact that if we accept the fact that black men do feel that white women are preferable to black women, are we saying that their behavior in the context of standard behavior is normal or abnormal?
Well, I don't like to use those terms. I would prefer to understand the phenomena. For example, if we start labeling behavior, like, for example, homosexuals don't like to be called pathological, for one thing. And I think that it is more useful if we say, well, let us try to understand the phenomena of homosexuality, as opposed to saying, well, now that's sick, and then people get turned off and they don't spend time trying to understand the dynamic. In the same way, I don't want to look at the phenomena of, cross-color sexual mating or marriage or whatever, and in terms of pathology. I would rather say, well, let's try to understand what actually is going on.
But you call the white woman the aggressor.
I say that she is aggressive because we live in the context of a white supremacy society in which white people are the dominant group. They are the people who control the power. We are the oppressed people. We are the people who are victims of that system. Just like, in terms of history, it was just a short 2 months ago, in terms of the whole historical span, that black men were being lynched for looking at a picture of a white woman. Do you see? And now we are told, well, now everything is opened up. Well, I want to understand, well, why is it that everything is opened up? I think everything is opened up since black men started talking about black power. You see, when black men start talking about black power, then that says, well, all right, maybe there will be a challenge to the system of white supremacy domination, not only in this area of the world, but all over the world. So the white supremacy system says, all right, well, now what do we do to get these people back in control? And what do we do to get them back in check? That is a black man. Well, we'll lay our ace trump card on them, which is a white woman.
In other words,
you see, which brings the black man then back within the context that the white supremacy system is going to work for you. See, we denied you this, now you have it. But on close examination, in spite of all of the black-white marriages, the black-white sex that has occurred throughout history, in the last 500 years, there has been no serious tampering with the maintenance of white supremacy, certainly not through the bedroom activity. Do you see what I'm saying? But in other words, it throws people off balance.
So
in other words,
the white woman is still, I think, in a position of psychological dominance.
Right.
And so far as she is, that's a form of white supremacy, and that the black men are frequently responding to her dominant position, the fact that she is considered a superior status object in society. But getting back to this point,
let me ask a question before you move to that. Then if we accept that, are we saying that the black men who marry white women are asking for dominance from a female?
No, the black men who are married by white women.
but the trend you continually.
No, I think that they're looking for status.
The black men are looking for status.
The black men are looking for status, whether they are aware of it or not. In other words, as long as you have white supremacy domination any place in the world, whether it's Brazil, whether it's Hawaii, whether it's Japan, any place, you name it, that as long as the people of color are the people who are oppressed, then when a marriage occurs, in other words, the dominator says, I will pick you amongst the victims who I dominate to marry you, then the victim says, oh, goody, this means I'm in.
Well, that's true, but if I can ask this question.
Okay.
It seems the way you are framing your analysis, that the almost total blame, if we can use that word, for interracial marriages is because of, one, white society vis-a-vis white supremacy.
Seeking to maintain itself.
And two, white women being the aggressors. You seem to be saying, and I'm asking a question, that black men are just blameless, and they're sort of like the victims of something that they have no control over, or that they have no need to be married to a white woman for some perhaps pathological basis.
No, let's say, for example, if you set up the conditions for the development of a sadomasochistic relationship, then the masochist as well as the sadist is a part of that relationship, and they are playing roles that they have been conditioned to play. In other words, a person who is a masochist seeks out the sadist because then they could play their sort of dual game,
Mutual reciprocity.
their mutual reciprocity together. Now, within the dynamic of the system of white supremacy, you have, for example, many of the white women who are with Black and other non-white men are actually, I believe, having a dialogue with white men.
How does that work?
See, the dialogue goes like this, according to my analysis. First of all, the white women, we have the women's liberation movement, which is a dynamic of white females. Okay, they are asking for liberation out from under the white male. All right, now within the dynamic of the white supremacy culture, you also have penis envy. In other words, the white men have been perceived as being dominant over the woman. And so the woman says, well, I wish I had a penis. Okay, so what does she do? She says, well, I'll go out and get one that's supposed to be more powerful than yours, but I'm going to control it because we are white and we control all of the non-white. So she goes out and she selects, and all this is unconscious, activity, if you will. She goes out and selects a non-white male, be he Black or any other non-white. Then she is walking down the street, or they can go to the, justice of the peace or the priest to be married. And anytime a white man sees that, she is communicating to him, see, I've got one because I am in control of this.
But I don't think we can, generalize to that extent. I think that's a theory. But it's getting back to the question when we present arguments that way, is whether the relationship between Black men and white women are pathological. Now, Frances said she doesn't like to think of it in that framework, but the fact is that a lot of psychiatrists have presented or said that interracial relationships in marriage stem from a type of negative psychological position or some type of pathology because of the racism in society. They'll say that the racism distorts people's minds so that frequently you'll get, say, a white woman attracted to a Black man for the wrong reasons or for racist reasons. She may see him as inferior, that might turn her on, or she might see him as a Black stud, that may turn her on. All of these are racist perspectives. Or the Black man can get attracted to the white woman because she's supposed to be superior and he wants to be part of that whiteness. In other words, she's sort of anointing him or helping him to feel a sense of self-worth by his involvement.
Well, I wouldn't argue with any of that.
But at the same time, I think that
let's look
we
at it
can't
this way.
say that this happens with everyone, and even if it does happen, that this is pathological.
Well, let's look at it this way.
Let's
say, for example, white men and white women have many difficulties in terms of marriage. All right. I mean, there's a lot of alienation that is going on just within the white group itself, within the whole total context of the white supremacy system. Black men and Black women have serious problems in terms of the marital relationship. Now, either we say that all of these people are sick because of, various problems, or we can say, well, now let us look at the total behavioral phenomena that is occurring within a social system. Let's not bother to label it, but let's begin to understand what is happening. Do you see what I'm saying? Because there are many, many problems. I wouldn't want to say that I don't think it's useful. At one level, we can say, all right, these are pathological relationships, the problems that Black men and Black women have. Or we can say that the problems that white men and white women have are pathological. But I don't think that, because once you say pathological, then,
which means sick.
Which means sick. Then people who can be helped by understanding the dynamic, they're turned off because they don't want to be labeled as sick, but they may want to understand the phenomenon.
Well, for purposes of analysis, let us assume.
Like, let's say everybody who comes to a psychiatrist doesn't want to be labeled as sick. They say, I have a problem. I don't understand how I am relating to this other individual and the product that we have that I don't want. Let me help me understand it so I can straighten it out. And this is where I'm coming from. I don't want to create a big thing
at the same time, though, I think we can recognize certain things that, I don't know if we want to call them sick, but that are distorted. For instance, I've seen Black men married to white women, and essentially they hate other Black people, that they have sort of joined the oppressor and are actively anti-Black. And
an expression of self-hate.
That's right. It's an expression of self-hate for them to marry a white woman.
But now,
on the other hand, I see some Black men who are married to white women who remain militantly black.
Well, couldn't
Or
that be
stay
a defense
involved with the
With
black
you,
mechanism?
but it is a
community.
contradiction
But
still.
being militant, let's
Yeah.
deal with this. Some of our most revolutionary blacks have white women. Now, many blacks suspect, and it's an open secret, that their militance is simply a defense mechanism so that they can deal with their need for a white woman.
Well,
But look at it this
that
way.
might-
Many of those
yeah, go
so-called
ahead.
militants who are married to white women, I think it's because of the way that they have defined the problem for themselves. Many black people who a white person will say, well, that person is militant because the person happens to be saying black power. They are not really talking about the overthrow of white supremacy. They're talking about workers of the world unite, maybe. Do you see what I'm saying? But because they are black, they're saying, well, okay, I'm saying in terms of a
You're
whole
saying they're talking
humanistic
integration, in
struggle.
other
they
words.
They
wanna
are
share in
talking
the
right.
power.
You see what I'm
They
saying?
wanna
So
share
they
in the
don't
power.
they
They're
don't
talking
perceive,
integration. I think
but they don't perceive a contradiction because
Yes.
the whole struggle of black people until recently has been defined as trying to get in to, we want to become a part of the society as though it is possible for people of color to become a part of the society. Now, some black behavioral scientists are saying, on the basis of having made an analysis that the system is one of white supremacy, in which none of the non-white people in the entire world, who happen to make up 9/10 of the total world population, none of the non-white people can actually integrate into the system of white supremacy because it is just that, maintaining white supremacy. Okay, so now within that context, then some black people are rethinking the position in terms of, now, if I am talking about the overthrow of white supremacy as a system worldwide, then what does it mean for me to not only marry, but for me to have sexual relationships with a person who, whether they are willing or not, are participating in the maintenance of white supremacy? And some of us are taking the position that if a white person really says that they like a black person or a non-white person, then they will abstain from sex and they will abstain from marriage because they perceive also their position within the white supremacy context is, as long as we have a system of white supremacy, then white people, when they relate to non-white people, are relating at a level of unequals.
But you're
And
saying,
until it's equalized, then something else is happening. Do you see what I'm saying? In other words, the non-white person who is in bed with a white person, thinking that they are bringing about a humanistic union, are really bringing about their further subjugation, because they are thinking
black
in
person
the
is.
act
Yeah.
of sex
Yeah, but
that now we are one and now we are equal. And so when you find that those people who are in bed with white people, when they get out, like you
And
said, they are negative, and you can make a diagnosis. If you see a black person being very, very negative when they are,
With other blacks.
with other
are you
black
saying this is
people.
in all cases? I mean,
Not
you're
in-
sort of
no, I
making
don't
a
wanna say
political.
all. I
Okay,
don't
but you're sort of
wanna
making
say
a political
all and
statement.
every.
but you
saying
have to
that-
agree.
I'm saying
but-
that the
yeah.
act of sex is a political act.
Yeah.
Do you see?
Mhm.
Just like
when
every
it's
other
between
act.
people of blacks and whites.
Every act is a political act, because when people relate, they are always relating on the basis of power. Do you see what I'm saying? Whether they are aware of that or not, you can never get away from that. And so even when people of different colors are relating, the question of power is brought into play. For example, the French, in terms of maintaining colonial domination in Africa, Arno Toynbee has written about this, that they made it a policy, if the black man, you send him to the African who's in the colony, you give him a high school education and send him on to the university in Paris. He comes back and he says, all right, now I'm a Frenchman and I want to be free. I'm educated. I know as much as a colonizer. I want to be free. That you can cool him out by giving him a white woman. Do you see what I'm saying? And we see certain phenomena going on in society today where black men who are married to white women are being given positions that black men who are not married to white women are not being given. Why? Because the white system perceives that that is a safe individual. Why? Because it is not only compromised in bed, but he is psychologically compromised. I mean, anytime you get in bed with somebody, sex is a very profound human act. And it has extreme psychological implications that spread into your, what do you do in the area of economics? What do you do in the area of entertainment?
Though, that if a black man goes to bed with a white woman, he has to be assuming that she's superior, or he has to
He
feel
doesn't
that.
have to. She is superior.
Yeah, but suppose in his relationship with her, does he have to feel that he's coming from the inferior position? What about?
She can take him anytime that she wants.
What
Do you see
about just
I'm
the
saying?
biology
If she
of it?
gets angry with
What about the
him,
biology of it? That is that he's involved in a sexual union that doesn't have political dimensions or
It
meaning,
does have political
even to him
dimensions.
psychologically.
Mm-mm.
Well,
Well,
that's,
if I'm saying
Yeah.
what
yeah,
Dr. Welsing is saying, maybe she's saying that that's not conscious, but the dynamic cannot be eliminated on a logical basis. I mean, on a conscious basis, you can't say that unconsciously my behavior is not determined by something that I'm
See,
not
we're
aware
not
of.
aware
Okay,
of it.
but
Like a lot of people say,
you're
well, this is
assuming that
love.
all black men then got this feeling of inferiority in them.
All non-white people feel
Okay, black
inferior.
folk.
See what I'm saying? All non-white people who are within the system and the dynamic and the power of the system of white supremacy, until they consciously work and struggle with themselves, and even then are going to feel inferior, because functionally we are inferior. Let's say you're a professor at Harvard.
Yeah,
I'm a professor at Howard. Physician, psychiatrist. I take the position that we are functional inferiors. In spite of that, even compared to the white person who has a grade school graduate degree. Why? Because within the political power system, they have more power to control what happens to their lives than you and I have to control and what happens to ours.
What about the fact that a lot of black men say that they are going with white women and so on because they're trying to get back at the system, or they're trying to get revenge, or this is really a hostile act, and it doesn't, in fact, that they see it as a confrontation with the white system, and not as something that they're succumbing to as an inferior person, that they're asserting, in a sense, their manhood, or saying they just have as much right to have a choice about the women that they want that white men used to have and still have. The white men can have white women, and they can have black women, they can have anybody they want, but black men were confined to black women, and they couldn't even have her
But
when they wanted her.
Let's
But
say this. Some
now
black men
the
say they're
vistas are
super fly.
opening.
Some say they're shaft. Some say that they're super nigger and that they have power that they don't have. That's a fantasy. You see what I'm saying? We can say a lot of things. I can say, for example, I'm a psychiatrist and I'm free. Does that make it a case? No, it doesn't. The proof of what is it that I can do for myself? Can I protect my children? Can I protect anything that I call mine? The ultimate answer to that is no. So that we can say a lot of things. Black men can think that they're doing a lot of things. It was not black men who said that white women could come now into the black community and start picking up whatever black man they want. The black man didn't have anything to do with that. And if the white supremacy system tomorrow morning wants to turn it around and say all white women come home because it's essential to maintain white supremacy, all white women will go home.
But don't you think, Francis, that psychologically, if white women have been forbidden to black men by oppression, if the black man has access to the white woman, that will make him feel more psychologically free?
It will fool them
the
more.
system.
Let's say, for example, if you tell me,
He
Francis,
said
you're
psychologically free.
well, that's not, well, wait a minute.
He didn't say functionally free.
No, it's a fantasy, and then it's a psychosis.
Is
Do
that
you
right?
see that?
What
Right.
do you
In
mean
other
by
words, if you
psychosis?
are operating, just like they tell us in
That means
psychiatry,
a loss of contact
if
with
you
reality.
are functioning, if you are functioning on something that is not reality, then you've had it.
Well,
Okay. Now, but this is something that the white supremacy system understands. You see what I'm saying? They understand. Well, now we programmed these victims to feel that if they get a white woman, they will have it. Like a black cat told me who was graduating from graduate school at Harvard, that marrying a white woman was a part of the Harvard degree. In other words, I'm really in. Do you see what I'm saying?
part of
All right.
ascending upward in.
All right.
in the
Now,
In
the
his mind.
system has
In his
programmed us
mind,
to
or-
think that. Just like it programs a black woman to say, all right, if you have a white man, that really means that you are in. Nonsense. Do you see what I'm saying? Because white supremacy is going on. And white supremacy will go on and victimize your children and your offspring, is irrespective of what you were doing in your bedroom
That's
activity.
true.
And the white supremacy system further would like the non-white and the black man to think that his phallus, or his penis, if you will, is equal to an M16 rifle, which is what he maintains power with.
But Francis, you don't think it's possible for a white woman and a black man to be involved in a relationship as individuals without all of this stuff?
No more than it is for a black man and a black woman to think that they have
You're
got.
saying all these things
We
always
don't
going
know.
on.
In other words, when the black man and the black woman decide that they are in love, you know, all those feelings that we call love. What we call love is just that historic programming, you know, what parent we were tied to and whatever dynamic was going on. And then we go and pick somebody who turns on those same feelings. And we call those feelings love. But that doesn't, just because we call it love and then glorify it, doesn't mean that we cannot understand how those feelings got programmed in that way. And so a black man and a black woman, particular people who've had particular experiences, meet on a sunny day and they say, we are in love and we want to go off and get married, as though white supremacy as a major dynamic in the world has disappeared. Oh no.
But we don't have proof that most black men are programmed that way.
Do we have 9/10 of the people in the world controlled by white supremacy?
But we don't have proof
Well, wait
that
a
the
minute.
black
What does that
man is
mean?
programmed.
What does that mean?
That is, we don't have the statistics to validate black men all wanting to rush after white women.
Wait a minute. Look at. Let's be honest. If we look at what is the dynamic that goes on in the so-called black community or more amongst black people, what is still, in the quiet recesses of our thinking, what is considered as beautiful? Still light skin and still straight hair. Well, what does that mean? See, that just means that the black mother who trained her son, I have a friend who says that his mother programmed him down in Oklahoma, just looking out the front porch to the girl, black girl who was light skinned, straight hair. There's a beautiful girl. To the black skinned girl with the kinky hair, she wouldn't say anything. Do you see what I'm saying? So that kind of programming, this is what I'm saying, that all of this goes on.
Involved in love.
All of this is involved in love. Who is a suitable choice? What kind of woman does a professional man marry? You see, you can just survey. All we have to do is look at the phenomena of the social laboratory.
That's true.
And say, well, who are the people that particular people pick to marry? And we can understand that the dynamic of white supremacy is intact even when a black man and black woman are in bed. I've talked to black men who said when they're in bed with black women, they're thinking about Doris Day.
Oh, really?
I mean, well, see,
But Dr. Busan, you must admit that there are some
this
black
is
men
nothing to be ashamed of. We have got to stop being
who
ashamed
exclusively
of
don't
truth.
like any female who is not white. Now, I'm sure that you would have to have one constant, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
if a man who is black doesn't even look at a black woman and looks at nothing but white women, and then isn't that significant? I mean, wouldn't that be significant enough to be a non-generalization?
Significant, but see, I don't know if we can relate it all as clearly to sort of political, the white supremacy. For instance, let me take it down to a personal level. Suppose something is operating like the black man and his relationship to his black mother or to his black father, where he develops blocks against black women, and then he generalizes it all to other black women, and then he gets involved with a white woman. Now, that doesn't mean that he's necessarily indulging in any form of white supremacy necessarily.
He's not
That is,
indulging in white supremacy.
you can't assume that
He's
his
indulging
rejection
in
of his black mother is because she's black. He may be rejecting her for all sorts of other psychological reasons.
Let's go down and look at that. Let us look
and
at
that the white woman happens to be there where he
see,
can
but this is
on.
very common phenomena amongst our people.
May I interrupt you? We're going to continue this next week, and we don't want to lose it. Next week, we're going to continue part 2 of Black Man, White Woman. And a couple of things we're going to discuss with our same panelists will be why so many prominent blacks marry white men and why so many prominent black females in particular marry white men. And tonight, we're going to continue where we left off last week. Our guests are Dr. Cress Welsing, psychiatrist, a member of the faculty of the psychiatric department at Howard University's medical school, and Dr. Alvin Poussant, who is a psychiatrist and a member of the faculty at Harvard's medical school in the psychiatric department, and author of the well-known book, Why Blacks Kill Blacks. To begin this second part of what was a very exciting first part, I'd like to throw the question out. What has the increase in relationships between black men and white women done to the relationship between black men and white women, in black men and black women?
Well, I think first we should say that, there's interracial marriages that take place between black women and white men too. And that's a whole area because it seems that black men always get the focus of the interest and the attack, which is interesting because I think the society, white supremacy has been concerned mostly with the black man, white woman. So I think that's the reverse of that, the white man, the black woman also is a subject. There's no question, it seems to me, that black women, from what I can see, all over, very, very upset and threatened by the growing relationships between black men and white women, and that they oppose it. Now, from the black man's standpoint, I hear a lot of brothers say over and over again that first it was the white man who told them they couldn't go out with white women. Now it's mainly the black woman who's telling them that they can't go out with white women, so that they still feel oppressed. Now, for whatever that's worth, I think that's an important point psychologically for the black man, because is the black woman in this, is she more concerned with her control over black men, see, or is she concerned with white supremacy and interracial relationships in general? Because if black women are concerned in general, then they should attack just as much, I think, the white man, black woman combination.
But hasn't the black woman, to some extent, because the statistics have reversed. These statistics for black women, white men has decreased by the same percentage that the statistics for black men, white women has increased. Yeah. So obviously the black woman
has more cause for concern at this point.
Well, maybe she has more awareness, more consciousness, more cause for concern. Maybe her concern is not due to the fact she's threatened. Maybe her concern is due to the fact that she's just politically more sophisticated and more conscious of what black people ultimately may have to do, and that is unify themselves.
Well, let me just add this, that I think that the black woman's concern is related to, let's say, perhaps her survival as a woman or her functioning as a woman. That, and hopefully, I hope it's beyond that, the change in the statistics. But I think that, let us say, black men after the age of 15 are decreased in the population relative to the number of black women. Where are they? They're in Vietnam, they're in prisons, and they're dying from various causes at earlier ages than white men comparably. So that, let's say, there are a number of women, black women, who are going without adequate spouses or male partners to relate to. So probably, instinctively, black women are concerned about that. Historically, white men have not been interested in black or other non-white women, be they Japanese, Chinese, Indian, or whatever. They have been interested in sexually exploiting black women, but not really taking them to the altar, let's say, to marry them or to really fully respect them. So perhaps black women are responding to that. But I think that what is key is really what is happening to blacks, because I see the thrust of white women sexually aggressing against the black man, or from the other side, the thrust of the white man sexually aggressing against the black woman, that this produces a division between black men and black women that is going to contribute significantly to, if you want to call it, genocide of black people. In other words, if you heighten the alienation between black men and black women,
harder to organize.
Right. It will. In other words, we talk about unity at a political organization level as being one kind of unity, but there is another kind of unity that is much more fundamental, and that is the unity within the family unit itself. And we have been denied the opportunity to really have functioning family units since the really onset of white supremacy.
Let me ask one question. Let's talk about the contemporary family unit of a interracial couple in today's American society. We're in the black community, we have to admit that the black community is much more nationalistic, or very nationalistic, and that the black community is not receptive as it once was to interracial groups. The white community, I would say, has moved to the right to a very, very great extent.
You mean seemingly to the left? You mean to be more receptive to?
No, more reactionary to.
It's more
interracial
reactionary.
couples.
No,
I'm talking about the middle America. I'm not talking about a few New York sophisticated interracial couples or San Francisco. These, I think, are just islands. Are surrounded by
I would disagree with that, Tony. I would say that white people have moved to accept black men and white women to a greater degree than has ever been evidenced in this area of the world. And that is across the board.
Then there's a black man.
And I would say that there's a reason for this. They are being conditioned by the kinds of movies that are being made these days. you know, where you have black men and white women engaging in sex on the screen or other kinds of relationships, at the white community, in other words, those people who are responsible for getting the masses of white people to do those things that are necessary to maintain white supremacy, are conditioning them to accept this phenomena. Do you see? Because they understand that the black man really is being psyched out of position. He is being psyched to think, when he asked for black power and liberation, and they said, no, we're not going to give you power, but here we will give you the white woman. And the black man was faked out of position, just like many people are faked out of position. You say black power, I'll give you a $15,000 job. You don't have power, you don't have self-determination, but you have a program or a grant. You see what I'm saying? In other words, you ask for this, but I give you this because you really don't know what you want.
Well, then are you saying
or
that
you
the
don't
children
really know what constitutes power, or you really don't know what is the dynamic of the system? A lot of people think that the dynamic of the system is money. Money is not the dynamic of the system. White supremacy, or the maintaining of white power throughout the world, when whites are outnumbered 9-1 by non-white people, is the name of the game. Color is the name of the game. But we don't, I say that across the board and around the world, non-white people have not understood the significance of the color dynamic, and how white people have taken something that they are very intimately concerned about. I say that the fact that they cannot produce color, that they have decided that they're going to dominate everybody else who has this genetic capacity, who can genetically annihilate them. You see, which comes, one drop of black blood makes you black. That is a statement of the genetic dominance of the capacity to produce color over the inability to produce color.
And occasionally you'll find, I guess Francis has encountered this too, you'll find white women who have a preoccupation and desire to have black babies.
And white men have a desire to create children.
Well, let's talk
color.
about the first. Let's talk
Okay.
about the obsession, if I may use that word, on the part of a white woman to have a black baby. Now, what would the psychological dynamics be in a case such as that?
Well, I think, you know, it's hard to tell without really just picking an individual case, but it may. Go ahead, Francis.
Well, can you?
But
have you ever had a case?
I know
I've had
black psychiatrists who say that white women don't say this to white therapists.
To have black babies.
But white women will say this to a black psychotherapist. I want to have a black baby.
Why?
I say why? Because white people, if we look at the skin color white is the genetic inability to produce color. It is a genetic deficiency state. It is a form of albinism. It has never been discussed in this way, but genetically, biologically, this is what it is. White people they don't have the capacity to produce color. They wish they could. This is why they spend a lot of time sun tanning, makeup, all of that is trying to give color to colorless skins. Okay. Now, because they have this deep psychological need, they are the only people in the world, they are the minority in the world who cannot produce color. And so they can't produce it, they can't make it on their own. They try to suntan, and then at the sexual level, they have attractions to people who can give them the illusion that they have participated in the production of color. So the white man has gone all over the entire world, having sexual relations with every group of non-white women that he meets. The white woman, when she has been allowed to, sexually aggressive towards men of color.
She is allowed to.
And so then she gives vent verbally to that fantasy. I want to have a product of color because this is the one thing that I can't
Francis,
do.
how much is color the issue? I think that
you can't move.
No, I know that. Okay, but what I'm trying to do is bring in other elements. That is, there's also, I've seen in some of these women a desire sort of to play a model role, or a really superhumanistic one. That is, they want the world to be colorblind, so they want to get involved in producing black children and raising them.
If they want the world to be colorblind, what is the focus on color all about? If the world is colorblind, what is the point of talking about having a black baby?
This is some of their rationale. What I'm saying, I think that some of it is political in their minds. That is the time that the civil rights movement was talking about black and white together. And that was a political position that people almost felt forced to have interracial relationships. And that was considered to be in the forefront of the whole thing.
Well, may I ask the question?
Both blacks and whites.
May I ask the question?
They were both involved.
You did quite a number of investigative studies. I remember reading one in Jet magazine on the interracial relationships in the South during the civil rights movement. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Now, wasn't there, or was there, or is there a phenomenon of black leaders and white women?
Well, I don't know if it's a phenomenon. Let me say that I would say a lot of the black leaders and the rank and file were involved with white women. There were also a lot of white men involved with black women, but I think the main group, that is the largest group involved, were black men with white women. and that this created a lot of problems. And I think it had a lot to do with the development of the Black consciousness movement.
Well,
in
didn't
that
it have a
framework.
lot to
What did
do?
it have to do with it? Wait a minute. See, there are people,
See?
for example, who are looking at the thing that
Yep.
has cut significantly into the quest for Black power that went on in the 60s has
Mhm.
been the unleashing of white women and saying that now you go out and have relationships with a Black man to cool him out.
Yeah, it had
in
political
terms of
significance.
all right,
No
so
question
that
about it.
let's say, for example, the white woman, if you talk to women who are the furthest left, white women
Mhm.
who are in the women's liberation movement, peace movement, or any anti-war movement, if you say, look, what about eliminating white supremacy as a system? They have no use for that. They have no use even for the Black man outside of the
They
context.
say they will, but I don't know
Wait
how
a
much
minute.
they're doing.
It has been my experience.
Mhm.
Maybe yours is different. It has been my experience that white women will talk about in the war in Vietnam. When you say, well, that's a war to maintain white supremacy, then they don't want to have any trouble with looking at it in that way. When you say, well, look, the way that we have analyzed the problem is it's not a question of who has the money. It's a question of an established system to maintain white power. And that this is what is raising havoc all over the world for the vast majority of people. Do you want to eliminate that? No, because the white woman understands that the Black man is not even going to feel towards her as he does unless there's white supremacy and unless he feels in his powerless position that he is gaining power by making an alliance, be it marital, sexual, or whatever kind of alliance with the white.
I think that they feel that maybe unconsciously. There was no question in my mind that with a lot of the white female workers in the movement, even though they were involved with Black men and sometimes married to them, that a lot of them had a lot of racist ideas and feelings. That is, frequently the attention of the Black men made them feel very special.
Right, like you called it the African queen, or the white African queen.
Yeah, the white African queen. Heighten their sense of feeling special.
You mean attention they couldn't normally get from a white man?
That's right.
Look at this.
And then
Let's look at
the
that
old
in
thing about
relation.
white women frequently who were unattractive, who came into the Black community because the Black men would adore them
but a Black
because
man
they
would
were
think
white,
she was beautiful.
but
Right.
the Black men thought she was beautiful.
That's right.
And that's still operating frequently, sometimes in subtle ways, so that you can sometimes get, I'm not saying this is true of all white women or anyone, but this is an example. You can get a very pretty white woman sometimes who internally thinks she's no good.
Why? Because
for a lot of
she
reasons,
has been devalued
who might
by
get
the white
attracted
man.
to Black men.
See, white
So it's
women are
not-
asking
it's-
for
it's- it runs
liberation.
deep
They're
sometimes.
asking for self-respect from their own men. Okay, because a white man not only had to be dominant to all people of color, he also had to dominate his own woman in the process. And so white women are saying, we want to be liberated, or we want to make ourselves equal to you. You see, I think that is a major dialogue that is going on. The white woman is saying she wants to be.
Don't some of them want to rid themselves of the racism? Isn't this important?
No,
particularly
that's
when
like
they're raising their children. I mean,
no, they
you
don't
think
want
that-
to rid themselves of privilege.
Which
You see,
white
and this
supremacy.
is why there was a study done recently where white women are still teaching 3-year-old, 2-year-old white children that it's no good to be Black and that Black people are niggers and this and that and the other.
But what about the white parent of a Black child? I mean, that white parent would have a vested interest in at least trying to deal with their racism so that they will raise their children unscarred.
You would think that.
Now, all of us know, people from interracial homes. I mean, they're not all, brainwashed into being white.
No, they can't be brainwashed into being white because they're all non-white. All of them have marks of being non-white products. Either their hair is curled, their lips are broad, their nose are broad, or their skin is dark. Black genetic material is always going to leave its mark. And the children are always non-white. And the children that I have seen, many of these children have more hang-ups about not being white, you see, than Black children who may be the same hue. You see, because they are caught in that dynamic of a parent on the one side, a white parent who still has not given up their desire to be dominant as a white person, and the Black parent, be they male or female, who when they went into that alliance hoping that they would somehow be in the position of an acceptable one now after they had devalued themselves. So that the child is in.
I don't know if.
Well, she's
what I'm saying
just
is,
for purposes of conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody can say all of
I'm not
anything.
saying
I
all,
know, but it's important that if we're talking about it, it makes it seem as if these are.
Well, let's look at it this way:
dynamics.
non-white children who have had white parents, all of us, everybody in this little circle, has had some white intertappings into their
Mhm.
genetic style.
Okay.
Do you see what I'm saying? Now, in the vast majority of non-white people in this area of the world have had white intertappings, so that it really is not significantly different than what happens actually in the white home itself. The dynamic is still the same. So that you have light-skinned, dark people feeling devalued because they have color, whether it occurs in some illegal alliance of a white man having something to do with a black woman on 14th Street in Washington, D.C., or in Mississippi somewhere,
see,
or in Harlem, New York, or
there's
Fifth
a
Avenue,
black
or
current
wherever.
involved too.
But
See,
what I'm saying is that,
I-
see, we cannot take any of this out from what is happening at a global level. See, one thing that has happened in psychiatry, that we have been tied up with somebody by the name of Sigmund Freud, who I'm sure made some very significant contributions in terms of looking at human behavior, some significant contributions, but he got tied up in talking about behavior comes from within the individual and only indirectly from what is happening outside of the individual. So he called it the sexual instinct, okay? But there are other people, fortunately, now who are coming along.
While we
And
have
who are,
time.
okay.
Yeah, but we're
While
not,
we have time.
you know, we're not completely controlled, you know, by the externals. And I would like to think that we have some power over determining and
We won't
understanding
have power
the
over what we don't
processes that
understand.
that affect us.
While we have time.
But I don't consider
Yeah.
myself a complete sort of a robot who's affected by racism and don't understand it. And I think a lot of people like that, both some whites, but not a lot of them, a lot of black people can understand or feel what's going on. And I think that's why you get some black men who are very aware about a lot of racial things in their blackness, who may get involved in those situations, particularly in the past. And you have some who are on the opposite extreme. But it's not like we're all,
Yes, all right.
yeah, go ahead.
We would never
Yeah.
resolve that very deep psychiatric problem.
Mhm.
But I would like to, at least while we have a few minutes, discuss one very important point. And that is the significant phenomenon, and Dr. Poussin, I'm sure you will agree with us in an overgeneralized way this time, the significant phenomenon of well-known, I will not make well-known synonymous with prominent, black women who particularly professional entertainers who consistently marry white men in large numbers and one white man after the other. And I would like to know from either or both of you how you view this dynamic.
I say that they're not marrying the men; the white men are marrying them. Okay, and I think
why you put it that way?
that is
Well, but if they continually
Right.
are selective.
well. Let's put it this way: number one, that as I said earlier, that there's an extreme alienation going on between the black man and the black woman. In other words, this same conversation really could be discussing the alienation between the black man and black woman that allows for the significant phenomena of black man, white woman that we see. All right. Because there is that alienation, then black women and black men all across the economic board, no matter whether they're on welfare, whether they're making, $150,000 a year, probably as an entertainer, are having problems in terms of their relationships with each other. Now, some women who, they may be in the limelight, or they may be considered beautiful, a star or something like that. All right. They have been frustrated in many of their relationships. If you take all of those entertainers, if they start telling you that they started out relating to black men and they had a number of kinds of problems, and so now, well, I don't want to say you didn't. No, you didn't fail us.
Okay,
you didn't fail us. The white supremacy system is just beating
black
all of
men
us.
will say that too about black women. That black women have let them down.
Right. Well, you see what I'm saying? It's just like the Julia syndrome. Diane Carroll and the Julia. Black women have been programmed via TV and everything else. You don't need a black man. You just need a white man to give you a job. At the same time, they're saying to the black man, you don't want a Sapphire. She's too argumentative. She talks too much. You see what I'm saying? What you need is a white woman. Now, what does this produce? This produces maintenance of white supremacy. Why? Because you have divided and conquered the black man from the black woman. Just like you divide and conquer non-white people.
I have to make this point, if that's true. But I still must return to the fact, and I don't think we can lose this statistic, that there is a decline on the part of black women in general in interracial relationships, but there continues to be a significant increase among black women and white men when the black woman is a prominent entertainer.
Yeah, Tony.
Okay.
See, because I'm isolating, and we must address ourselves.
Okay, well,
I'm isolating that group of black women.
Part of this, I've talked to people about this in show business. One of the explanations I give, you can take it or leave it, is that in the entertainment field, where these women are most of the time, that there are very few prominent black men who have power. Black men aren't the producers, they aren't directors, they aren't the people putting up the money, they aren't the stage managers, that all of these people in that industry, the strong, dominant, powerful men are white.
Are you
And
saying
these-
that the black woman, in order to be successful in that field, must marry one of those white men?
No, I think that that's part of the
But
phenomenon.
many black
that
women
no
in
black
the
men
entertainment
around
field
to
do not
marry.
marry white men, and they are still successful.
Yeah.
So wouldn't that not
But I'm saying
contradict
they're
that
coming
point?
in constant contact with these types of white
And
men in the
there's not
business
a
who
lot
have
let's say,
power,
look at it this way.
and starlets frequently marry men with power.
Okay, and
White
not only
actresses
that,
do
they-
this, white entertainers.
they're
But I
not
must
a
now
lot of
return to
black
your
men.
theme. Wouldn't the
Okay.
variable then be the individual?
No, look, there are not a lot of
No.
black men who are earning that same salary. Okay,
into that
and
thing.
because even at the lower level, black men and black women have problems because the white supremacy society has said it'll be easier for a black woman to make a particular salary. Black women can get a job easier than a black man any day, and
Is
that
not
has
true, though?
caused, huh?
I don't think that's true.
Well,
anymore.
just
At least
ask in the community.
statistics. Okay,
Ask
go
in the
ahead.
community, because a black woman could be a domestic worker when her husband couldn't even work.
Yeah, but I think it's shifting. That's
Well,
all
it
I'm
may
saying.
be
Go ahead.
gradually shifting. I don't know about that looking at the current unemployment statistics, okay? But I'm saying that that has been a sore point within the black family unit a long, long time. And that's why somebody like Monahan can come out and talk about matriarchal family structure. Why? Because the white supremacy society said, well, we'll let her make more money because it's really important to keep him down. All right, so this is what they did. Now, when you get to the level where the stars are, and the income,
Why the fear?
well, wait a minute, and the incomes that they're making, that number one, you have many black men who are not making comparable salaries. And when they are making comparable salaries, because of the dynamic that goes along with that salary, then he wants a white woman. So who's available for her? Because we have one black behavioral scientist who says when a black man is poor, he wants a job. When he gets a job, he wants luxuries. And when he gets luxuries, he wants a white woman.
All right,
Now, that is the dynamic that is produced.
All right, let me ask
But you see what I'm saying? It's
one-
not
okay,
castigating the
okay,
black
okay,
man. It's
okay.
saying this is what the white supremacy society is programming.
All right, but consistently,
And we have got to keep that
consistently,
in
Dr.
mind. It's
Welsing,
not
you
pulling
have made
ourselves
a point, and a very strong premise, that the black man is the real fear of a political system based on white supremacy.
Oh, yes.
Why, I'll ask.
Well, I
why
say-
the black man? Why is this system so afraid of the black man?
You know what
If
black
that fear
power
is the
means?
reason for interracial relationships.
You know what black power means?
It means
Black
black.
power means genetic power. The black man can annihilate the white man, with his phallus. The white man has to build a missile to annihilate people of color. By that, I mean this, that I think that the fundamental thing that is frightening white men and has frightened them since they were created as genetic mutations is that their appearance can be annihilated by the black man, especially the man who can create the most color, which is a black man in the whole human family. And that is the individual who has to be made inferior and who has to be controlled and has to be destroyed at the fundamental level of genetics. Then we can look at the next level in terms of numbers, that non-white people, if they outnumber white people 9-1 in the world, then the white man all over the world has got to say, now we have got to keep these people down. And you keep a people down by controlling their men. Women, that's why they
I
can
think
let.
that's true.
Succinctly,
That
They
was
will,
how
you
do
see,
you
and I
policies.
think that this is where.
I think that's true, that all of the policies that they had in repression of blacks directed toward the black man's access to the white woman, because then he could destroy white people eventually by making all people of color. Whereas the white man, his access to the black woman produced children of color, but they were black children.
No, the white woman is that all of the children of black and white are non-white.
Yeah,
Whether it's a male white or the female white, the children
whatever.
are all,
the children are all brown. But
okay.
That's why they wanted to protect the white woman against the black man.
Not to protect her, to control the sexual activity of the black man. You see what I'm saying? Not
in
to protect,
relationship
but
to the white woman.
That's important. In other words, the genetic material of non-white men in the world has to be controlled if we don't want the disappearance of white people. And white people, even though they don't like the fact of skin whiteness, proof their quest for suntan. Okay. Even though they have psyched themselves into the position that white is beautiful, although they don't really believe it, then they don't want white appearance to be annihilated because now you have a worldwide system that's 500 years old of white domination and white privilege.
To control black people.
Thank you. Thank you very much for a very, very interesting interview and some comments. We hope to have Dr. Welsing back on a future Black Journal program discussing her very phenomenal genetic theory called the Cress theory.
Peace. Again, this is the enemy's public. I am Brother Nasir. I hope this was a learning experience to those who didn't know who the Honorable Dr. Frances Cress Welsing is. She's a master teacher. She's someone who loved us and worked tirelessly, and she was always steadfast when it came to teaching our brothers and sisters. Again, more content is coming. This is the enemy's public. I am Brother Nasir. Like, share, subscribe, leave a comment in the comment section. Peace.
The public.